parts of your book, which, by the way, I very strongly recommend. The Maverick Effect, a very interesting read. Apart from Harish's own life story, it talks about NASSCOM's story. For me personally, a topic that's also where this city was at the epicenter, right? The Satyam issue was at once perhaps the greatest challenge at that time for the industry in its history. And in hindsight, it turned out to be a remarkable story because of the way the industry came together in salvaging India's pride and the brand. Right? And NASSCOM played a very key role, and you were right in the middle of it. Can you just tell the audience a little more about that situation, how working with the government and earning their trust and becoming us? Yeah. Could you just talk about that a little bit? For me personally, it is my favorite part of the book.
Also, Mr. Gopalaswamy, our former Chief Election Commissioner, he wrote to IAS Academy in Missouri, saying that every IAS and IPS officer should read this chapter on Satyam. And I'll tell you why. We all believe that it's a great, it's a finest hour of NASSCOM also. When Raju's letter came out accepting his fraud, within few hours, Som Mittal called a meeting of Ganesh Natarajan is here. I think he was the chairperson at that time of NASSCOM. There was a call made saying that here is the situation, what should we do? So the first reaction of ours was, it's a company issue. Board of directors should have worried about it. If not them, auditors should have been also worried about it, or the shareholders. That is not a job of an association to go in the internals of a company. But then the argument came from different places saying that, no, but if Satyam collapses, and they had few Fortune 500 clients, what happens to those mission critical applications? They do millions of transactions. Suddenly, it is possible that they will be on the road. And it can hurt the India Inc. brand badly. These Fortune companies who are the customer will never come back to India. They'll brand India as a fraudster's country, and a lot of negatives were possible. So we realized that India Inc. brand would be hit badly. So we gave a green signal to Som saying that you go ahead and tell the government we have to save Satyam. Then Som went and met Corporate Affairs Minister Gupta. Okay, I want to meet, this is a very urgent issue. He explained the situation. Then he called Mr. Kamal Nath and many other ministers in the meeting, and they talked about it. Same reaction from all the ministers. Why should we step into it? It is a company issue, and let the other companies learn from that. And they strengthen their processes of not having such frauds coming in. But then they understood the logic. Once they understood the logic, they said, we'll get back to you. Then they called Mr. Babe, who was the SEBI chairperson. Before that they talked to the Prime Minister, should we go ahead and take over the company? Prime Minister said yes. Then they talked to SEBI chairman, and then he said that there are certain changes we'll have to make. Cabinet has to pass these resolutions before, we have never done in the past, so for us to take over a listed company, that's the process, we need to fix it. But then that will take maybe a month or two. So they came back to us saying that, can you keep Satyam alive for a month and a half, 2 months, at least? Because, I mean, when the news is out, everybody, all their competitors, let's say every IT company would be excited to grab part of their business, part of their people. Again, the meeting took place. It was discussed, how do we help save Satyam for 2 months before the government takes over? So in that discussion, again, we said we will not recruit any senior person proactively from Satyam. We will not go proactively after any Satyam's customer. Now, it's a very hard decision. I remember one CEO said clearly, this is a golden opportunity for me to double my business. Why should I follow you? And this is a very normal marketing 101, that if competitor is weak, go and after the kill. But for whatever, that collective wisdom of the CEOs of NASSCOM again, I call that maverick mindset in that sense, that say, okay, we will be ready to compromise our short-term losses or let's say gains for a long-term benefit of saving the India Inc. brand. And then, I don't know what happened in the reality, but Satyam was alive, let's say, for 2 months. I'm sure the role played by the resilience of the employees and customers, all that does play into it. But NASSCOM played a critical role in at least controlling it. And then Kiran Karnik, who was the former president of NASSCOM, was appointed as the chairman of Satyam. And the government took over. And then, of course, the rest is history, as we say.
Absolutely.
There's nowhere in the world such a case study exists where competitors came together and saved a company. It showed the maturity or integrity of the CEOs of the IT industry. And that's why I'm very proud of that.
Absolutely.
And that's why I call that as the finest hour of NASSCOM.
Fascinating story, absolutely, Harish Bhai. Yeah. Sadly, we are very badly out of time, so I'll just ask you one last question, even though we've not even got to half of the questions that I prepared for you. And here I'd like to touch upon your own personal track record. You have been an entrepreneur as a very successful business, Onward Technologies, that you have done. And you have gone through several challenges, and you have been in situations where many people in this room are today, right? Two things I would say. What is your view on the opportunities for technology-led entrepreneurs? What are the opportunities that you see? And on even broader note, how can they best leverage the opportunities that are available to today, and what lessons can they learn from what the IT industry went through? And how would you connect the two in terms of the opportunities and the behaviors that you would advocate for them?
I mean, all the experts are here, and we all say that India is an unstoppable engine now. Huge, huge opportunity. We have equally tough problems to solve. But I'm sure that, collectively we'll have to work on few issues to see that it happens. So my suggestion, based on the NASSCOM experience, I would say that the way CEOs of NASSCOM spend more than 10% at least, I would say, time for the industry, for building the ecosystem. And it has nothing to do with the IT industry. Has to do with the mindset. That mindset, if it is replicated by the startup industry. So let's say as a startup, first they should get together, according to me, have some sort of a forum, maybe a TiE platform, maybe a whatever specialization that you have. But there has to be a platform where we all, or let's say all of those entrepreneurs sit together as a starting point. Then do define the vision for India. What is the vision? I don't know, frankly, yet what the vision is. Is our vision India becoming innovation hub of the world? Is vision India becoming digital talent nation of the world? Is India becoming pharmacy of the world, hospital of the world, teacher of the world? You hear lots of beautiful, visionary, dreamy statements coming out from experts around. But how do you make it into a reality? So my suggestion would be, of course, Kanwal and I always say we would like to see million technopreneurs to be created in the country. That will solve India's challenges. So to my view would be, in order to drive that, we need to look at the entire ecosystem. So like today, you as an entrepreneur spend your full time in wealth creation. You are trying to change the world a little bit by putting in full your passion behind your venture. We would like to see 10% of the same, I would say, out-of-box thinking, their creativity, that passion, when you are at the peak of your career, to spend time on ecosystem around you. If you spend that time and you have an independent, neutral platform where all of you can discuss, debate, and take up the issues, I am sure, like the vision that whatever we have, whether it is million technopreneurs or whether it is innovation hub, we would be able to achieve that.
I can't agree more with you, Harish Bhai. Like I said, sadly, time is up. But like Harish Bhai also mentioned, given technology is the solution for most problems that we need to solve, both for opportunities for businesses, society, and also even for the survival of the mankind. If you take climate and other things, technology is the center of all solutions. Given that, and the fact that today India is perhaps the biggest source of talent and the ability to scale. And last but not the least, a very supportive and progressive government, plus an outstanding VC community that is an enabling ecosystem for technology entrepreneurship. The future couldn't be brighter for India, and I wish you all the very best. Thank you so much, Harish Bhai, for a very interesting conversation, and more importantly, for all your contributions to NASSCOM and the industry. And last but not the least, a very interesting read of a book in Maverick Effect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramanujam, Mr. Mehta. We request you to kindly stay back on the stage. And I request Mr. Jayesh Sanghvi and Mr. Suresh Raju to kindly join us on stage and present. Sirs, we request you to kindly stay back on stage, please. Thank you. Present a memento of our gratitude to our speakers. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear a huge round of applause for Mr. Krishnan Ramanujam, Chairman, NASSCOM and President, Enterprise Growth Business at Tata Consultancy Services, and Mr. Harish Mehta, Chairman of Onward Technologies and author of The Maverick Effect. Thank you, sirs. Ladies and gentlemen, a humble request, keep your mobile phones on silent mode while the sessions are in progress. I also humbly request the speakers to speak a little slower with a few pauses in between for the sign language interpreters to do their job efficiently so that the hearing disabled delegates can understand the sessions better. And now, I invite on stage the moderator of the next panel, Mr. Jayesh Parekh, Managing Partner, Good Startup, to take us through the panel discussion on the future of alternative proteins in India. Let's hear a huge round of applause for Mr. Jayesh Parekh. Welcome, sir.
All right, wonderful. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, Shivani said that she was going to make an introduction, and she showed me a full page of things that she was going to read about me, so I was quite embarrassed. I said, listen, I'll do a better job. First of all, let me thank Suresh Raju, and I'd like to thank Murali for giving me this opportunity to be here in front of you, and also to bring such an important topic about alternative protein. So we'll tell you a little bit about alternative protein as well. So just as an introduction, I am a charter member of TiE Singapore and a board member of TiE Singapore, which is your host for TGS 2023. And I'm also a board member of TiE Mumbai. I've been a charter member for 20 years, and I can't tell you how important this relationship has been with the TiE community, and I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed and benefited from it. Just briefly, my background, I was part of the team that brought IBM back to India. So IBM was out of India for about 10 years, as many of you would know. And then post that, I co-founded a television channel network, which is a jewel in the crown for Sony, which is called Sony Entertainment Television. And post that, I helped two of my friends start a venture capital fund, Jungle Ventures. And that's about $1 billion under management now, based out of Singapore. And it's a technology venture capital fund. I also helped my dear friend Vineet Rai as an initial shareholder for Avishkar. Avishkar is an impact investment fund, and also I'm on two of their investment committees, and that's another $1 billion under management, exclusively investing in impact all over the world. More in India. Fast forward now, today, I am a venture capital fund manager for Good Protein Fund, and Good Protein Fund only and exclusively invests in alternative proteins. And we'll tell you a little bit more about it, but my interest in alternative protein is because it is an intersection of economics, technology, and impact, all three of them. And so that's the reason I'm in this. So today's session is the future of alternative protein in India. So let's get started. First, let me invite my colleague, Neha Poddar. She is a principal at Good Protein Fund, and she has a chemical engineering degree from IIT Bombay and an MBA from Chicago Booth, which is the same alma mater as Suresh Raju. And Neha also happens to be from Hyderabad. And she worked as an investment banker, and then she flipped and joined the impact investing bandwagon. Neha will tell us a little bit about the alternative protein, some basic information, because many of you know about alt proteins, but let's just hear a view from Neha. So please give a warm TiE welcome to Neha Podar.
Thank you, Jayesh, for the warm welcome. Namaskaram. It's really a pleasure to be here in my hometown for the TiE Global Summit. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to give you an overview of the alt protein industry from a global standpoint. So there are three major trends that are shaping the food industry. First, there is the global flexitarian movement, wherein people want to eat healthier and they want to eat more plants. The global flexitarian population stands at 42%, and a majority of them are millennials or younger. Second, the evolution of technology in the sector. Historically, we've made food using food ingredients or molecules. Now, we are doing the same using biotechnology. This is as fundamental a change as the transistor was for the computing industry. Third, the sustainability imperative is upon us. By 2050, the global population will reach 9.7 billion people, and it will have a substantially larger middle class. As per Bennett's law, we demand more protein as we get wealthier. So we simply will not have enough protein to feed the world by then. We cannot do more of what we are doing. We must do something radically different. Our current food production system is unsustainable. Not only is it harmful to the environment, but it has negative implications for both humans and animals. Livestock industry alone is responsible for over 14.5% of global greenhouse gas emissions. 75% of all human diseases originate in animals. It is the #1 cause of deforestation, animal death zones, and species extinction. 80% of all antibiotics used are administered to animals. And to top it all up, we slaughter about 80 billion land animals and over 1 trillion fish annually. So, alternative proteins offer a sustainable, alternative across all fronts. They use up to 90% less energy, up to 99% less land and water, and they emit up to 90% less greenhouse gases. In addition, we reduce the animal and fish slaughter to 0. Today, there are 3 dominant technology stacks that are being used to create alternative proteins. Plant-based, which uses plant-based ingredients to mimic meat. Listed company Beyond Meat is an example of this. The second technology stack is microorganism-based or fermentation-based, which uses unicellular organisms such as bacteria or yeast to create proteins. Impossible Foods, which is an industry leader in the category, it's actually a precision fermentation company because their key ingredient, heme, which makes their burgers bleed like meat, is derived using precision fermentation. And then the third technology stack is cell-based or cultivated, which essentially involves taking specimen from animals and growing them in bioreactors in a lab setting. Eat Just subsidiary, Good Meat, is an example of a cultivated meat company. In terms of funding, 2021 was a watershed year for the industry. The industry received $5 billion in funding, which was up 60% year on year. 2 key things that I would like to point out here, that the funding for fermentation and cultivated increased dramatically. It was a 3x increase year on year. This shows the industry recognizing the potential of these technologies and investing heavily in them. Second, the industry received 45% of its all-time funding in 2021. This shows the industry coming of age. Animal agriculture is a $2 trillion plus market. Various estimates claim that alt protein is going to command anywhere between 10 to 22% of that market by 2035. And this represents a $200 to $400 billion opportunity. But for that, a key number of things need to happen. First and foremost, we need favorable regulations. Currently, US and Singapore are the only two countries that have given approval to cultivated meat in some form. We need that to expand. We need to scale consumer adoption, but for that, we need products that reach taste and price parity with conventional meat. And for that, we need improvements in technology. Last but not the least, we need investors who are willing to support the industry. We've seen similar disruptions throughout history. We used to kill whales until kerosene came along. We rode horses until the automobile was invented. We would get insulin out of the stomach linings of pigs and cows until synthetic insulin was developed. Technology appended all these industries. Technology has now come to the food industry. It is notable that the food has version numbers now, much like software. There is no doubt that the alt protein industry is at an inflection point. And what's important about inflection points is that our action during these times have a disproportionate impact on our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Neha. That was a great introduction to alt protein. And now let me invite Varun Deshpande. He heads Good Food Institute India, GFI, which is, the GFI is a non-profit think tank, an international network of organizations working to accelerate alternative protein innovation. Varun is the president for Asia at the Good Food Institute, where he works with scientists, foundations, governments, and businesses to build the alternative protein sector across the continent. Varun has spoken all over the world, ranging from IITs to STS Forum in Kyoto to Harvard University, and his writing has featured in media, including The Hindu and Daily Guardian. Varun will tell us how the alt protein industry is doing in India. Varun, come on.
Can everyone hear me? Great, thank you so much. Sorry, yeah. So thank you so much, Neha, for laying the groundwork for our conversation here today. Very glad to be here with you, and grateful to the organizers here, as well as Jayesh, for this opportunity. I'm going to speak a little bit further about what's happening in India in alternative proteins and why this is both fertile ground as well as an imperative for us to transform our food industry and the future of our planetary health. So, alternative protein in India has had an interesting and promising beginning. We've actually coined the industry smart protein because we believe it's just a smarter way to make our meat, eggs, and dairy. And based on what we've seen, it can actually advance several national strategic priorities, which are championed by our political economy, people in this room, and the government of India. So of course, we know we have a massive agricultural and allied development sector. We've all professed a desire to show global leadership in the Sustainable Development Goals. And of course, climate and nutrition security will particularly impact countries like India, developing world countries like India. Additional to this, we also have some key unique strengths in this country, right? So we've heard in the session that just went before us that India is an unstoppable engine. We think India can also be an unstoppable engine in alternative or smart protein. We can be a globally competitive economy if we capitalize on some of our strengths. Now, if you analyze some of these, going from, I think, the right to the left, cities or ecosystems like Hyderabad and Bangalore have showcased what we can do when we apply our minds in adjacent industries. So all of our collective ingenuity applied to, for example, vaccine manufacturing has led to India being 60% of the world's supply of vaccines. We're seeing a similar impetus within food technology, food manufacturing, biomanufacturing more broadly, and this presents a major industrial opportunity for the country. We also have a globally competitive talent pool, right? And that doesn't just mean cheaper labor or people who can speak English and go abroad and work in this space. It means that we have truly competitive chemical engineers, biomedical engineers, food scientists, marketing folks, people who can really impact the future of this sector as well. And then finally, and this is by no means a comprehensive set of strengths, but one of the most relevant ones is our fantastic crop biodiversity. So if you look at, for instance, the agroclimatic zones across this country, they're essentially unmatched in terms of what we can do. So millets, pulses, hemp, pongamia, mung beans, chickpeas, they're all being evaluated as opportunities for use within this global landscape. And that presents a huge opportunity for us to reward our farmers, to create entrepreneurial momentum, and really have a groundswell of smart protein in this country. And we've started to see that, right? So the names on the screen here are by no means comprehensive. In fact, we have to keep remaking these slides every few days because there's new companies emerging all the time that are very exciting, but there are some examples on the screen there. As of today, there are more than 50 launched companies in just the plant-based meat, egg, and dairy landscape, which have launched more than 300 products on the market. So I'm having this conversation with you now, and if we had been talking a year ago, it would have been a vastly different picture, right? So some of these names are names that you might recognize as well. I think what's equally exciting is we've seen a value chain develop here. So right from figuring out which crops we want to use, as I said earlier, through to processing those crops, getting functional ingredients, through to the end product formulation, the most tasty, nutritious, cost-efficient products that can go on the market, we've seen an ecosystem emerge, and we've worked with all of the folks on this slide to kind of create that momentum in the space. Interestingly enough, and we'll hear more about this on the panel, we've also seen really exciting support of the space. So the idea is that we want to take it from what is a niche opportunity in Malabar Hill in Mumbai and take it to the true mass market. Right? So if we have folks like Virat Kohli, Anushka Sharma, Neeraj Chopra, Shah Rukh Khan, Ritesh and Janelia Deshmukh, MS Dhoni, platforms like Swiggy and Zomato taking this to the true mass market, then we can kind of break out of this early adopter, cloistered person in Malabar Hill and go through to the rest of the population. I guess, by the way, the analogous space here is Jubilee Hills, I guess. Now, everything I'm describing, even globally, has happened on a shoestring budget. Right? So these numbers look decently large. Over the last 11 or 12 years, we've seen about $11 billion globally in smart protein investment, right? So not counting 2022, which we'll get the numbers soon. But only 10 million, or roughly under 15 million with an M, of that investment has come in India. So all the ecosystem slides that you're seeing have truly come on a shoestring budget. And then equally, we've actually seen vastly more investment go into adjacent spaces like renewable energy. So smart protein has received about 11 billion. Renewable energy in half the time has received nearly $2 trillion. That's many orders of magnitude larger. Now, if we get it right, I think we could create something of true value in India. Jayesh mentioned earlier, this is the intersection of economic value, impact, and a huge opportunity here, right? So some of the sizing that we've done, this is with Deloitte India, indicates that we could have a multi-billion-dollar industry by 2030 with a path to 10x further growth by 2040 and create over 4.26 lakh jobs if we get it right. But this won't happen spontaneously. I'm going to end here so we can start the panel. But we really do need the intersection of industry, science, and policy. We need to go mission mode in this space, as we have done in other places like IT over the last decades. We need public, private, and philanthropic investment, research and technological commercialization, talent development incubation, agricultural integration, and scaling the entire space. So this is really a playbook for what we need to achieve, and that demands the collective ingenuity of everyone in this room and beyond this room. Thank you so much.
All right, let me also bring up on stage the other two panel members. So first, let me bring Kuntal Joysher. He's an accomplished mountaineer, a high-end computer science professional, and a reputed nutrition and fitness expert. Joysher's expeditions to some of the world's tallest and toughest mountains are fiercely driven by a profound personal mission, which is to remove animals out of the food system. A vegan since 20 plus years, Joysher is also the first vegan in the world to climb Mount Everest twice. While tackling the big mountains, Joysher is not only powered by plant-based foods, but also 100% animal-free clothing and gear, which we'll talk about. His biggest dream is to climb to the highest points of all the 7 continents of the world, and he's already completed 5 continents. Please give another warm TiE welcome to Kuntal Joysher. And then the last but not least, Richa Chadha is here, and she is one of Hindi film industry's most critically acclaimed actors. She and I first met on the dance floor of my daughter's Freya's wedding at Tote in Mumbai. She's known for her unconventional choices as well as her astute political opinions, similar to our dear friend Murli's. having etched some of the most memorable of on-screen characters we have seen on screen in the past decade. Richa paved her way to success on her own terms. Her films, Gangs of Wasseypur and Masan, have been showcased at the Cannes Film Festival. Her first film as producer, Girls Will Be Girls, has won the prestigious Cinema du Monde grant and the Sorbonne grant. She produces under the banner of Pushing Buttons Studios, company she owns with her husband Ali Fazal. Congratulations on your recent wedding. And she will be seen in cult comic caper Fukre 3 early next year, and in Sanjay Leela Bhansali's upcoming film Hira Mandi. Please give a warm welcome to Richa Chadha.
All right. Welcome. So, Kuntal, let me start with you. May I first please request you to briefly tell us why and how you conquered Mount Everest twice?
So, can everyone hear me fine? All good? Yeah. So, Jayesh bhai, first of all, really love the environment here and love the passion here and how everyone's here to kind of support each other. Really appreciate a big round of applause for the TiE Global Summit team. Really appreciate that. So I went vegan about 20 years ago, and about 12 years ago, I found one of the biggest dreams of my life, which is climbing Mount Everest. And as soon as I announced this dream to everyone, I started getting a lot of pushback. Kuntal, you cannot climb Everest as a vegan. No vegan has ever climbed Mount Everest. And then they all started saying things like, you need meat, you need to eat dairy, you need to eat eggs to build the fitness, to build the stamina to reach the top of Mount Everest. Now, I'm a Gujarati and I don't really give up very easily. So I kind of promised myself that I'm going to climb Mount Everest as a vegan or I'm not going to do it at all. So that's how kind of my journey started of climbing Mount Everest. And about 6 years later in 2016, on May 19th morning, I stood on the very top of the world. Now, I was standing on top of Mount Everest, but unfortunately, I was wearing a dead animal on my body. There are jackets which are made from feathers, and these are the jackets that protect you in temperatures of minus 50 degrees Celsius, and it is one of the most critical piece of equipment. So I was wearing that. And just like how Jayesh bhai invited me to this panel, after I came back from Everest, I was invited to about 50 of talks. And every time they would invite me on the panel saying, here's Kuntal Joysher, the first vegan in the world to climb Mount Everest. And I would go and stand and I knew that I was not a vegan because if I was wearing a dead animal on my body, I couldn't call myself a vegan. So I promised myself I'm going to go back one more time and I'm going to climb Everest again as a vegan while wearing completely animal-free gear. Unfortunately, no animal-free gear existed on the planet, and there was only one human in the world demanding it, especially from an Everest context at least. Luckily, an Italian company called Save the Duck collaborated with me, and in 2017 we created what is now known as the first animal-free suit of the world that can reach the top of Mount Everest or can go at any portion of the world and can keep me cozy and warm. So I went back in 2019 and I climbed Everest again just to prove to the world that vegans are not weak, that we get enough protein, since this discussion is about protein, and that we also have proper gear that keeps us warm and cozy and safe on the top of the world and can do that anywhere across this world. So that's one of the big reasons why I climbed Everest twice.
Thank you so much, Kuntal, for sharing that. So, Richa, over to you. Can you just, I've made an introduction on you, but can you weave in the fact that you're interested in your protein and the protein journey and how you got interested in alternative protein?
Hi, good morning, everyone. As an actor, I think we all have to take care of our fitness and our diets overall, which is why I got interested in the journey of protein. And I firmly do believe that actors are not equipped to give out fitness information or dietary tips. That's not our expertise. I leave that to people like Kuntal here, who actually study it. But having said that, to improve my own personal fitness and to have a proper amount of protein in my body, I looked at alternative sources of protein like pea protein, hemp protein, and today, thankfully, a lot of options are available. And we must remember that India is a country. The number of vegetarians in India probably exceed the population of a small European country. And we are always on the lookout for sources of food. Let's not go into the debate of whether meat should be eaten or not eaten. That's not why we are here. If somebody who's vegetarian for personal reasons, religious reasons, or it's a choice, they should have access to good quality protein. And it's very heartening to see that today there are Indian brands that have come up where you can buy protein, because 4-5 years ago, it was only if I was traveling to Europe or to America that I could go and get a good quality alternative source of protein. And I would stock up and buy it from abroad and then bring it back home and consume it. So I'm very happy to note and to share with you all that several companies which are truly make in India companies are coming up with alternative protein sources.
Thank you, Richa. And so now, Varun, over to you. You're sort of the role model. You're GFI. GFI is probably the best known non-profit in this particular space. But tell us your personal journey. What got you interested in alt protein?
Yeah, thank you, Jayesh. And by the way, this is really inspiring, Richa and Kuntal. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your insights. My background is in healthcare, so healthcare delivery, global health, non-profits, etc. Many of the things that we all care about, I care about, right? So I guess the question that I want to bring to the crowd here today is, if I repeated many of the things that Neha said, right? So things like industrial animal agriculture, the way that we get most of the meat, eggs, dairy, seafood on this planet, right? The large-scale raising, slaughtering, fishing of meat, eggs, dairy, seafood is a central node of the world's most pressing problems that we all care about. So everything under the umbrella of climate change, deforestation, land use, water use, ocean acidification, ocean dead zones, species loss, biodiversity loss, etc., etc. Also, public health crises like pandemics, zoonotic disease, antimicrobial resistance, food insecurity, because we need to use all of this land to grow all of these crops, to feed all these animals, and then eat those animals. So I'll say all of this, right? And people who are far more expert than I, who have been studying this stuff for decades, have said that this system is central to all of these problems. Now that I've said all of this, obviously, everyone in the crowd who eats animal-sourced foods is just going to stop, right? You're just going to go home and stop eating animal-sourced foods and we'll no longer have this problem ever again. Correct? No, that's obviously not true, right? So that's why we all got into this space, because we believe that if we're going to actually address this problem, we have to provide a viable alternative to the meat, eggs, dairy, seafood that people know and love. And that has to be on the basis of taste and cost and accessibility and nutrition and all of the things that matter. So that's kind of why I got into this. I think what's happening in the alternative protein or the smart protein space presents an opportunity for a true industrial revolution, the next industrial revolution within food and agriculture. It's a diversification that we've never seen before, and that's incredibly exciting, but we have a lot of work to do.
So Varun, you have been in India now for quite a few years, and you've been following this industry. So, give us your perspective, because we have brands like Brew Tribe, you mentioned, which is supported by Virat and Anushka. You got Imagine Meats with Janelia and Ritesh, and now Shakahari is sponsored by MS Mahit Dhoni. Is this a long-term sustainable model, you think? I mean, in rest of the world, there people are focused on deep technology, whereas in India, it looks like people are focused on brand building.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I mentioned earlier, look, we have the capability in India to do deep technology, right? To do biomanufacturing, to do research on crop development, next generation ingredients. So if everyone in the world is using soy and peas to produce these products, in India we have all of this biodiversity, and we have the deep knowledge to use these things. We have our biomanufacturing industry, fermentation, cell cultivation. There's a lot that can go into this, but we need to find those talent pools and move them into this space. So what we've seen is a deep degree of interest from people who are sitting in these universities, who are sitting in the biopharma landscape and interested in getting into this space. And I think that's definitely possible. But you need both sides, right? I mean, I don't think technology in isolation can solve everything. We also need to be able to position it correctly, to fit into people's lives, to market it correctly. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So I think I'm bullish on the idea that folks like MS Dhoni, the Deshmukhs, Virat Kohli and Anushka Sharma, they can bring what's happening in this space to the true mass market, but we do need to invest in the technology, make the products better all the time.
Thank you. And so, Richa, you just briefly mentioned your thesis, but I'd just like to get a little bit more insight into the motivation why you're consuming the salt protein. Yeah, you're just as a consumer, like you consume this, and so what is your thesis and your motive to consume salt protein?
I already said why I consumed alternative protein, but because I mean, honestly, like I said, I don't think actors are equipped to give out nutritional information. But if you need to supplement your diet, I would really recommend people who are vegan. I was having a chat with Kuntal also, to up their supplementation, get the right amount of B12, D3, and make sure that the food that you're using is good for your body. I also don't think that we can give out diets like it's, horoscope in the newspaper, which is a one-size-fits-all. Today, how is your day as a Sagittarian going to be? Tofu may suit you, but not me. Tofu doesn't suit my brother. He will develop an estrogen issue. Is tofu produced in a non-GMO way? How are we producing our food? We actually, since he's been speaking so much about sustainability, we have to look at things like seed sovereignty, food sovereignty, and to figure out how our agriculture can move to the future of agriculture. Can we look at hydroponic farming? What is the quality of our soil? Is it possible truly for anything in India to be called certified organic? These are difficult questions, and these are questions we must ask ourselves. Like, I'm going to ask you a difficult question. So much is being spoken about, so like right now, sustainability. Look around you. Every table has 3 or 4 or 6 plastic bottles. This hall is not even full to its capacity. Everybody is going to consume at least 7 or 8 of these plastic bottles in a day. I know you can't help taking a flight. There's no carbon neutrality. We can't help taking a car to the venue. We can't help the lights. But we can help the plastic water bottles. Perhaps for next year, let's get on board a sponsor that is willing to give us glass bottles here, like the ones we've got for our panelists on stage. And there was a time when we didn't drink from plastic bottles. There was a time when people carried their own water bottles. What happened? It wasn't so long ago. Why can't we have campers on the side and people can be disciplined enough to fill their own glasses? I'm not lampooning anyone. I'm just saying meaningless discussions about sustainability that don't look at the bird view picture are truly that. They are meaningless. So we have to look at these things as well. We have to look at how we are producing our food. We have to look at the communities that are producing our food. We have to look at ancient wisdoms and extinct species of grains and foods. Why is it that a rare kind of Himalayan wheat is now only available in North America and not in India? Why? So these are difficult questions, but I think we must ask ourselves these questions and really make truly informed choices. Otherwise, it's empty. It's like saying, oh, I drive a hybrid car. I have an electronic car, so I'm not creating pollution. But how is electricity being produced? Is it being produced from coal? If electricity is being produced from coal and you're driving an electric car, are you truly sustainable or are you adding to more pollution? So let's not have lip service. Let's truly understand what we are doing to the planet, because every day around us, we have evidence that mortality is dropping. People are dropping dead in their 30s and 40s. It's because of the toxicity that we have all around us. Even a child in the womb is shown to have plastic in their blood. How is that happening? These are difficult questions. Questions about sustainability, food sovereignty, seed sovereignty. These are discussions that we need to have in places like these with corporates such as you. You guys have the money. You guys have the power to make a change. Actually, people think that we listen to policymakers, but we know for a fact that the policymakers listen to corporates like you, to sponsors like you, to banks like you. So true change is actually in your hands.
Thank you, Richa. Wow. Well said. Just a little focus now, changing to entrepreneurship. Kuntal, I am quite intrigued at your journey to Mount Everest. And you know how in entrepreneurship you have co-founders and they say that you need resilience and you have strategy and all of that. Can you describe your difficulties as a team and the team dynamics that you need to have to climb Mount Everest?
Right. First of all, it was yesterday during the welcome address, Suresh mentioned about George Mallory's dialogue, where George Mallory was asked, why are you climbing Mount Everest? And George Mallory's answer was, because it is there. And that entrepreneurs also kind of look at opportunities in that way. And that there is always an invisible team behind every Everest-like journey. So even in my case, there was an invisible team that was putting me on top of Everest. A lot of times I read these headlines when I see Times of India covering my story, Mumbai boy plants a flag on top of Mount Everest. You read the whole article, it is only about Kuntal Joyshar. And I'm like, but Kuntal Joyshar akela to nahi chada Everest. Right? There was such a huge support team, specifically to highlight the role of my Sherpa guide. His name is Mingma Tenzi Sherpa, and almost in some sense, he's the co-founder of my Everest journey, and how he kind of Sherpa'd me to the top of Mount Everest. We have been together for almost 8 years. We have been climbing together for 8 years. And I still remember having this conversation with Jayesh Bhai at Starbucks and telling him this story. I was about 800 feet below the summit of Mount Everest in 2016. And at one point, I lost complete sensation in my thumb. I kind of stopped and we were at a 50-degree ice wall. And I was taking my thumb and I was hitting my thumb really hard on the wall, kind of trying to feel any feeling in it. Couldn't feel anything, as if the thumb didn't even exist. And I kind of stopped and I let Mingma catch up to me. Mingma was kind of behind me, so he caught up to me and he said, why are you standing? Why are you wasting your time here? Let's just keep moving. Otherwise, you'll get stuck in a traffic jam. So I'm like, Mingma, I can't feel my thumb. And I don't want to lose my thumb, because if I lose my thumb, then it's never going to grow back again. So I'm like, let's just go home again. Before I could do anything, Mingma looked at my mittens. He looked inside, and through a very bad mistake of mine, I had probably gotten some ice inside my mittens, which had made my hands really cold. So he quickly removed my mittens. He dumped them in my bag, and I'm like, I just have 60-second mittens on, or gloves on my hands. What should I do now? Mingma is like, relax, take it easy. He took his own mittens, $200 mittens, which were completely warm from his own body heat. Without thinking once, he put them on my hands. He was wearing $5 mittens on his hands. Both of us summited an hour later to the top of Everest, him wearing $5 mittens and me wearing $200 mittens. And that's the kind of support, that's the kind of teamwork, that's the kind of people I have had around me, taking me and shepherding me on this journey to the top of Mount Everest. So if I'm going to say that, hey, I climbed Mount Everest and I climbed it alone, that is completely inaccurate and that is not truth. On the contrary, I probably summited Everest on the back of my Sherpa, Mingma Tenzi. So that's the kind of co-founders I truly believe that we really need. That's the kind of team I truly believe we need when we are going on any Everest journeys, which is people you can depend on, especially when things go really, really wrong or things go really south. If you can't even get together with these people when things are going good and when you are enjoying, at 29,000 feet in your metaphorical Everest, you are going to have a tough time kind of working with these people. So that's kind of, some lessons that I learned from the mountains, and especially the importance of choosing the team, importance of having that right co-founder in your Everest-like journey.
Thank you, Kuntal, for sharing that personal story. Meera Kapoor was supposed to be here and she fell unwell, and so that's why she's not here. And Janelia D'Souza and Deshmukh also was hoping to be here, but she's producing and acting in a movie that's coming out at the end of this month. But Varun knows them extremely well. And Varun, I want to take a moment of your time to tell us about the investor view, the founder's view, right, in terms of this all protein industry in India, both from the view of Meera as an angel investor and Janelia as a founder.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I think, look, investors have theses that are dependent on also solving problems in society, right? There is the financial imperative, of course, but I think as an investing community, people want to come together and solve problems, and that's your motivation as well, right, Jayesh? You've started a fund that focuses on alternative protein. So we've seen a huge amount of investor interest from people coming from the agri space, from the broader technology space, from the consumer space, from the health space, and yes, from the climate space as well, because we've seen funds that are getting formed now that focus purely on a climate mandate. So I think there's a huge opportunity here for investors that are looking at these various sectors and these various problem statements to get involved in this space. So similar to renewable energy or to electric vehicles, things that Richa was talking about earlier as well, this is a very analogous pillar of climate action. And a lot of the money that comes into this space will now come in from folks who are interested on those things. So that's really interesting and exciting, but there's a lot of work to do. To Kuntal's point that he made just now, what's been really exciting from us, for us as people who steward the entire space, is we think of every stakeholder group as our co-founders of this new sector, right? So investors like yourself, Jayesh, but also entrepreneurs, people who are entering this space because they want to solve these key problems in society, or because they like meat and they just want to make it in a way that doesn't continue to break the planet, right? So every entrepreneur, every researcher, every kind of university or scientific stakeholder, every government stakeholder, we're all kind of getting into this and co-founding a new sector together, which shows major promise to solve many problems in society. And that's really exciting, I think, from the entrepreneur's perspective. Right before this in the keynote session, and I'll just close by saying this, there was a really great comment that was made that along the journey of NASSCOM and the IT industry, folks like the heads of TCS and Infosys and other really large companies would go to international and national forums and speak pre-competitively. They would present case studies of their competitors' success because they wanted to lift all boats for the entire industry. And that's really what's exciting about our space as well, is it's kind of a smart protein wave that's lifting all boats. So all the companies we mentioned, Blue Tribe Foods, Imagine Meats, Good Dot, Shakahari, we're all kind of going forth and putting our best foot forward because we know that if we raise all boats, it'll create a much larger industry than any one company on its own.
Thank you, Varun. Continuing there, Richa, can I also request you to, there are a bunch of enthusiastic founders and entrepreneurs and investors in the audience, and so if there is a word of encouragement that you'd like to give specific to, coming into the alternative protein industry. So just, there are a whole bunch of investors here and founders and entrepreneurs, and if you have any word of encouragement for them to join this bandwagon of alternative protein. Okay.
Like I said, people who have the money drive change, no matter what is said to you. This is the truth that I know. So anybody here who's looking to invest in alternative protein, you guys are really going to be investing in the future of India. I hope that in your attempts to create an alternative protein market, that your food procuring is through extremely sustainable means, because, and I'm not even kidding, over the next 6 to 8 months, we are looking at a food supply crisis because of the way the current system of farming is going on all over the world, not just in India. We're looking at a situation like day zero, where groundwater tables are set to deplete. And we already have toxic air in so many Indian cities. If you just look at the number of cities among the most polluted in the world, how many of them are Indian? The question we must ask ourselves is this what we deserve? No, we deserve better. Some of the brightest minds of the world come from India. So we must truly be well nourished, well rested, in order to truly progress as a people, as a country, and that can only happen if we respect Mother Earth. if we truly understand indigenous farming practices, give power and strength to food communities, to tribal communities, to farming communities, and make sure that agriculture is not just ecologically sustainable, but financially viable, financially sustainable. The number of farmer suicides we've had in the last 3 decades in India, and this is not a political thing, go into lakhs and lakhs and lakhs. If we had a foreign invader killing so many people, we would be at war. So what about our policies is killing our own food people? People who are producing food for us. What about our policies that is ensuring that they have no option but to hang themselves from a tree if they face a loan? A holistic view is really important. It's important to invest in communities. Suppose he today wants to start a pea protein company that is only focused on pea protein, and you want to invest in it. It makes sense for you to support this community that grows peas from the ground up. So that's my only 2 bits. I'm not a corporate. I don't come from a banking sector. I'm a liberal arts student. But this is common sense. And I really wish you all the best in investing in alt protein. Thank you.
Thank you, Richa.
Thank you.
Before I come to you, Kuntal, I just want one quick word from you, Varun, on the Indian regulatory ecosystem. How is the regulator looking at this whole space?
Right. So, I mean, some of these foods are novel foods, right? So if we're talking about producing meat from animal cells, which is essentially cutting out the middle animal, of course, the question arises of consumers need to be aware of kind of what they're eating as well, right? So if these are biotech produced foods, Richa mentioned, you know, I think the way things are produced is really important. Naturally, the regulator also is interested in these things because the regulator is safeguarding the interest of consumers in the country, right? What's really exciting is we've seen internationally a lot of interest and understanding develop around this concept. So Singapore, which is where you're based, Jayesh, at least half the time, Singapore has enabled the sale of that product in the market. The only country in the world, and then the US is now enabling it as well. So obviously the Indian regulator is looking at this. There are working groups that have been set up. There's a lot of work that's going into making sure that there is a robust and clear set of practices involved in regulating all of this and making sure that consumers are aware of what they're consuming, as well as balancing the burdens on the companies as they enter this space. So I think I'm optimistic. We have to make sure that we create a robust ecosystem of regulatory, and that has to come from science, from industry, and account for the interests of the communities involved in producing food as well.
Thank you. So Kuntal, last word from you, your encouragement to the founders, entrepreneurs in the audience.
So first of all, since the topic is alternative proteins, I personally feel as a nutrition and a fitness expert is that India as a country grossly under-consumes protein. So we really need to up the quotient of protein consumption that we are doing, not just to take care of our health, nourishment, but to also take care of our senior citizens, because sarcopenia after 60 is a reality. Now that said, and that context set, Varun had shared this really amazing list of all the companies in India that are doing great things around the milk space, the meat space, the egg space. But let me tell you, a common man cannot afford a single product on that list. A single product. The middle class in India is about 400 million people. The below middle class is far bigger than that. The real India is that 100 crore people, not the upper echelon of 5 crore people that will, spend all this crazy amounts getting these fancy meats and eating these fancy milks and everything. Right? That is not the real India. That is not where you are going to get the volume and the scale from. Again, even I'm not a guy who knows about corporates and who knows about business, but I can understand that money can be made at a scale of a country like India, definitely. And there are all you amazing business minds, amazing, brilliant minds, food technologies, general people, like all of you guys are in this room, investors, all of you folks. So one thing that I would really like to urge each one of you is to start building solutions in this space. There is a lot and lot of opportunity in this space. Feeding protein to 140 crore people, sustainable protein to 100 crore people, that is a gigantic opportunity, and I truly believe, as Varun and even Jayesh pointed out, the next revolution is going to happen in the food tech space. Healthcare and technology, all of these things are very important, but food is as basic as us eating it 4 times in a day, impacting every single thing we do for the entire week and for our entire life. Alternative proteins is, in my opinion, the next revolution, and you guys here, the cream of India, the cream entrepreneurs of India, the business of India, you guys need to come up with solutions, products, and investment for this space and make India the leader in this space and shepherd the world towards these solutions. Thank you so much.
Wow. Well, we've run out of time, and I'd personally like to thank Suresh and Murli for trusting me with this slot in this important topic. And let's give it up for my panel here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to all the panelists. We request you all to kindly stay back on the stage. Well, you know, when Richa here, she mentioned about the plastic bottles and the damage that it has been doing to our world, I think this is a very important point, and lifestyle changes are brought on by leaders and influencers, and whatever they do, the people around them, the society adopts those changes. Request you to kindly stay back. We'll just take 2 more minutes. So I believe this is the moment all of us, all of you guys who are leaders and influencers of the society, have the power to bring this change. Let us all pledge to carry the metal water bottles with us wherever we can. Can we do that? Yes? Thank you so much. I believe all of you have the power to bring this change. I now request Ms. Neha Podar also to please join on the stage. I request Mr. Suresh Raju, Mr. Amit Mehta, and Mr. Amit Mukam to please join on the stage and present the mementos of our gratitude to the panelists and the moderator, Mr. Jayesh Parekh. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear a huge round of applause for our wonderful panel. And I think I'm going to take this moment to congratulate Richa on behalf of all of us present here today on your marriage. I think there are a lot of things that she has in her life to celebrate about, but let us all, your fans, celebrate this moment for you. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, the world has moved towards the physical well-being a lot. But over a period of time, we had seemed to have forgotten the importance of mental well-being, the emotional well-being overall. The next panel discussion is going to be about the same, the emotional well-being, the importance of it, and hows of it. I'd like to invite on stage Mr. Murli Bokkapatnam, Chairman and CEO of Volsky Technologies, and co-chair of TiE Global Summit 2022. And it is my honor to invite on stage Daji Kamlesh D. Patel to have a conversation with Mr. Murli Bokkapatnam. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear a huge round of applause for Daji.
I think the craving that we all carry is from the very beginning itself. The moment the world, the universe was created, that craving is embedded